It was a quiet Sunday afternoon. Mia and I were in the backyard. She was watering the flowers, humming something she made up herself, completely in her own little world. I remember thinking life felt unusually peaceful that day. I should have known that it never lasts long in this neighborhood. The gate swung open so hard it bounced off the fence. Karen Mitchell, HOA president, self-appointed neighborhood judge and full-time chaos machine, came marching in like she owned the ground beneath my feet. She didn't knock. She didn't greet us. She walked straight up, pointed directly at my 8-year-old daughter, and said, "Your little girl stole Mrs. Patterson's diamond bracelet at yesterday's block party. I have a witness." Everything stopped. The birds, the wind, my heartbeat. Mia looked up at me with the most confused, frightened eyes I had ever seen, and quietly started to cry. I took a slow breath and asked Karen one simple question. Who exactly was this witness? She crossed her arms with the confidence of someone who had rehearsed this moment in her bathroom mirror and said, "Debbie." Of course, it was Debbie, the woman who once filed an HOA complaint because someone's garden hose was the wrong shade of green. Her witness was a rumor in human form. Then Karen reached into her oversized bag and pulled out her phone like she was presenting court evidence at a murder trial. The photo was blurry, distant, and showed absolutely nothing conclusive. Just children playing near a table. She held it up anyway, chin raised, deeply proud of herself. I almost laughed. Because here is what I actually remembered about that block party. Mia had spent the entire evening near the bounce house with 3 other kids, laughing so hard she could barely breathe. I was within arm's reach of her almost every single minute. Mrs. Patterson had walked past us twice and smiled both times without saying a single word. There was no confrontation, no accusation, no moment that resembled anything Karen was describing. This story had been built entirely from gossip and assumption. Then Karen delivered her ultimatum without blinking. "Return the bracelet by tonight, or I'll go to the HOA board and the police." Standing there, watching her perform this little power move in my own backyard, I felt something shift quietly inside me. Not panic, something colder, absolute certainty. I asked Karen calmly to leave my property. She refused. Instead, she turned around, walked straight out through my gate, and began knocking on neighbors' doors one by one like she was running some kind of door-to-door defamation campaign. I stood there watching her, genuinely unable to believe what I was witnessing. Within 2 hours, the neighborhood WhatsApp group had completely exploded. Messages were flying in every direction. Speculation, assumptions. People who weren't even at the block party suddenly offering opinions about my daughter's character. 3 HOA members sent me passive-aggressive texts carefully worded just enough to avoid sounding directly accusatory. They had already chosen their side before hearing a single word from me. Then Mia walked up behind me while I was staring at my phone. She tugged at my sleeve gently and looked up with those same frightened eyes from earlier. "Did I do something bad?" she asked quietly. "Why does everyone think I'm a thief?" That single question hit harder than anything Karen had said all day. I put my phone face down, crouched to her level, and told her she had done absolutely nothing wrong. But when she went back inside, I sat completely still for a long moment. Something had crystallized. This was no longer about a bracelet. This was about my daughter's name, her confidence, and the story she would carry inside herself if I let this go unanswered. I picked up my phone and called my lawyer, Marcus. I told him everything without skipping a single detail. He listened quietly and then said 4 words that finally made me exhale. Srin showed absolutely everything. For the first time since Karen walked through my gate, I felt the balance of power beginning to shift, and I intended to push it all the way. The next morning, I woke up still carrying the weight of the day before. I had barely slept. My mind kept cycling through the same loop. The blurry photo, Debbie's worthless testimony, Karen's face as she pointed at my daughter. I was in the kitchen making coffee when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. I didn't. The voice on the other end was soft, almost embarrassed. It was Mrs. Patterson. She apologized before she even finished introducing herself. She told me she had found her bracelet the previous evening, sitting quietly in the side pocket of her car, exactly where she had placed it for safekeeping before the party. She had never lost it at all. Then she said something that stopped me completely. She told me she had never spoken to Karen about any of this. She had never accused anyone, never mentioned Mia's name, never asked Karen to get involved. Karen had built the entire accusation from nothing, appointed herself as investigator, judge, and executioner, all without the supposed victim's knowledge or consent. Mrs. Patterson agreed to put everything in writing and said she would cooperate fully if needed. I thanked her, hung up, and sat with that information for a quiet moment. Then I called Marcus. I told him what she had said word for word. There was a brief pause on his end before he responded with the calm, focused energy of someone who had just been handed exactly what he needed. "She didn't just defame your daughter," he said. "She invented the entire thing. Karen just made this very, very easy for us. Marcus didn't waste a single hour. By that afternoon, a formal lawsuit had been filed. Defamation of a minor, harassment, and emotional distress. 3 separate charges, each one carefully documented with screenshots, timestamps, WhatsApp messages, and Mrs. Patterson's written statement. Karen had handed us every piece of evidence we needed without even realizing it. That is the thing about people who operate on arrogance. They never imagine anyone will actually fight back. I was sitting on my front porch when the process server walked up Karen's driveway. I won't pretend I had gone outside for any other reason. I watched her open the door, watched her expression shift from irritation to confusion, to something closer to genuine fear as she flipped through the papers in her hands. It was the first honest emotion I had seen from her since this entire nightmare began. She looked up, and for one brief second, our eyes met across the street. I didn't wave. I just went back inside. An hour later, my phone rang. It was Karen. I let it ring. Then came the voicemail, her voice stripped of all the authority she had performed so confidently in my backyard. She stumbled over her words, suggested she may have moved too quickly, and wondered if perhaps we could handle things quietly between neighbors. I listened to it once, forwarded it immediately to Marcus, and never responded. He added it to the evidence file without blinking. The HOA board, sensing the walls closing in, attempted to position itself as a neutral party. Marcus sent them a legal notice the same afternoon that made their neutrality completely irrelevant. They publicly distanced themselves from Karen within 48 hours. Even Debbie, the witness, the foundation of Karen's entire case, submitted a written statement recanting everything she had claimed to see. The neighbors who had been so eager to speculate in that WhatsApp group went very quiet, very quickly. Karen had marched into my backyard with the confidence of someone who had never once faced real consequences. She was about to understand exactly what those felt like. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, but the silence inside it felt enormous. Karen arrived looking like a version of herself that had been slowly deflating over the past several weeks. The sharp, performative confidence she had carried into my backyard that Sunday afternoon was completely gone. She sat rigid beside her lawyer, eyes forward, avoiding every corner of the room where our side existed. Mrs. Patterson took the stand first. She was clear, composed, and devastating in the most understated way possible. She confirmed under oath that she had never lost her bracelet, never reported it stolen, never mentioned Mia's name to anyone, and never authorized Karen to act on her behalf in any capacity whatsoever. Every word landed like a quiet hammer. Karen's lawyer attempted to reframe the entire episode as a genuine misunderstanding, born from neighborly concern. Marcus let him finish and then methodically dismantled every word of it, presenting the blurry photo, the recorded voicemail, the WhatsApp screenshots, and Debbie's recanted statement in clean, precise sequence. There was nothing left to argue against. The judge looked at Karen for a long moment before speaking. "A misunderstanding," he said slowly, "is forgetting someone's name. What happened here was a public accusation made against a child with no evidence, no authorization, and no regard for the damage it would cause." The courtroom stayed completely still. The verdict was delivered without hesitation. $120,000 in damages for emotional distress and defamation, mandatory resignation from the HOA board, and a written public apology addressed directly to Mia by name. I didn't celebrate out loud. I simply looked down at my hands and thought about that quiet Sunday afternoon when everything was peaceful, and my daughter was humming a song she had made up all by herself. Karen paid every dollar. She resigned from the HOA board the following week and delivered her written apology in an envelope she clearly struggled to seal. I read it once, folded it, and put it away. Not as a trophy, simply as proof that accountability, when pursued with patience and precision, always arrives eventually. We used part of the settlement to take Mia to Disney World. Her one dream trip she had been asking about for 2 years. I watched her run toward the castle gates, laughing so freely that the entire weight of those past weeks simply dissolved. She had no idea about the courtroom, the lawsuit, or any of it. She just knew she was exactly where she wanted to be. Karen had wanted to make my daughter feel like a criminal. Instead, she had the best summer of her life. Don't ever touch someone's child, especially mine.